The wind howled across the open fields, tugging at the shutters of our farmhouse like a restless child seeking attention. I stood at the kitchen sink, watching the horizon fade into twilight, the vast emptiness pressing in like a weight on my chest. Ethan had been gone for 9 days. Not unusual, his work as an agricultural consultant often took him across state lines. But this time the silence felt louder. The absence stretched longer. We'd been married for 6 years, long enough to know each other's habits, too long to pretend we hadn't changed. Ethan was quiet by nature, distant even in the best of times. He was dependable, methodical, a man of the land. But he was never one for lingering gazes or words that wrapped you in warmth. Our love had started as fire, but over the years, it cooled into something practical. Like a sturdy fence, still there, but weathered. The farm had become my world. I milked the goats at sunrise, fed the chickens by mid-morning, and repaired whatever needed fixing before sunset. The days were long but predictable, until they weren't. It was a Tuesday evening when I first heard the sound. A soft rustle from the barn, too heavy for a stray cat, too rhythmic to be the wind. I hesitated at the back door, flashlight in one hand, a wrench in the other. The gravel crunched beneath my boots as I stepped into the yard. The barn loomed ahead, cloaked in shadows. Inside, the air smelled of hay, engine oil, and something unfamiliar, smoke maybe. I moved slowly, heart pounding in my ears. Then I saw him. A man, mid-30s, lying on a pile of hay in the loft. His coat was dusty, his boots muddy. A canvas duffel bag rested beside him. "I'm not here to steal anything," he said, sitting, up with both hands raised. "Name's Caleb. Ethan said I could stay here for a few days, said you'd know." I didn't. But he looked tired, worn, like a man trying to outrun something he couldn't name. I lowered the flashlight, unsure whether to believe him. He hired me last week, said he needed help fixing the fencing while he was gone. He told me to stay in the barn. I figured. "Ethan never mentioned you," I cut in. Caleb shrugged. "He said you'd be fine with it." He seemed harmless enough, but my instincts prickled with warning. Still, the barn was freezing at night, and the nearest motel was 30 miles out. I gave a short nod. "Just for tonight," I said. "I'll call Ethan in the morning." I brought him a blanket and an old thermos of tea. He thanked me with a crooked smile that felt too easy, too warm for someone I'd just met. I left quickly, unsettled. The next morning, I called Ethan. It rang 4 times, then voicemail. I left a message asking about Caleb, kept it casual. Hours passed, no response. Caleb, on the other hand, was already at work when I walked outside. Shirt sleeves rolled up, hammer in hand, fixing the sagging gate near the north field. He worked with a quiet efficiency, stopping only to offer a nod as I passed. Later, I brought him lunch. Just sandwiches and iced tea, but his gratitude was disarming. "You don't have to," he said. "I know," I replied. We sat on opposite sides of the fence, eating in silence. He told me about growing up in Montana, losing his family in a fire 3 years ago, drifting from town to town ever since. His voice carried a weight, the kind people don't fake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his hands, strong, calloused, capable. The way he looked at me, not through me, not past me, but at me, as if I were still someone worth noticing. I told myself it was harmless, just a man helping on the farm. But deep down, I knew better. The next morning, I found him in the barn again, this time repairing the busted lantern Ethan had meant to fix months ago. He glanced up, met my eyes, and smiled. That smile did something dangerous to me. It made me feel seen. Later that day, Rachel called. "How's life in the land of corn and cattle?" She teased. "Quiet," I said. "Too quiet." "You sound off. Everything okay?" I hesitated. "Yeah. Just tired, I guess." But I wasn't tired. I was restless, uneasy, like I was standing on a frozen lake hearing the first crack beneath my feet. And as I hung up the phone and looked out toward the barn, One thing was suddenly very clear. My husband was gone. But the man in the barn wasn't. The days passed with a strange rhythm, one I hadn't felt in years. Caleb rose before sunrise and worked alongside me with an ease that unsettled and comforted me in equal measure. We spoke in fragments: weather, feed levels, fence rot, but our silences were heavy with things unspoken. Ethan still hadn't returned my calls. His texts were brief, formal, busy in Nebraska, stay warm. It was typical, predictable, and that somehow made it worse. Caleb, by contrast, was present fully. He noticed things, the way my wrist tensed when lifting feed bags, that I always paused before opening the henhouse door because of a stubborn latch. He'd fix things without being asked, without a word. One afternoon, while we stacked firewood, I caught him watching. Me, not in a hungry way, but as if I were something rare, like I mattered. "You ever leave this place?" he asked, tossing a log onto the pile. "Not often," I replied. "Town's an hour out and Ethan's always gone. Someone has to keep the animals alive." "You ever wish for more?" The question landed with force. I opened my mouth, then shut it. "I used to," I admitted. Then I stopped asking. Caleb nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. Sometimes silence is louder than anything. That night I stood at the window, watching the barn. A storm was rolling in, low thunder growling across the hills. I could see a faint glow from Caleb's lantern. I told myself he was just a worker, a stranger passing through. But that didn't explain why I kept brushing my hair twice before bed. Or why I suddenly cared what shirt I wore to feed the chickens. The storm broke after midnight. Rain slammed the tin roof. I couldn't sleep. Something pulled at me. Not logic. Instinct. I grabbed my coat and flashlight and stepped into the night. The barn door groaned as I pushed it open. Caleb was there, sitting on a hay bale with a chipped mug in his hands. "Storm's ugly," he said. I nodded, stepping closer. "Power's out. Figured you might need another blanket." He stood, met me halfway. "Thanks." Our fingers brushed. The moment stretched, thick with something neither of us dared name. His eyes searched mine, slow and deliberate. "I should go," I whispered, but didn't move. "You came here," he said, voice low. "You could have stayed inside." I didn't answer. I couldn't. His hand rose slowly, gently cupping the side of my face. I should have pulled away, should have run back to the house and locked every door between us. Instead, I leaned in. The kiss was slow, searching. A quiet ache released after years of being ignored. When it deepened, I didn't stop it. Neither did he. The rain masked everything: the creak of wood, the catch of breath, the sound of something sacred breaking inside me. Later, as I lay beside him on the loft straw mattress, reality began to settle in like dust. "I didn't plan this," I said, staring at the rafters. "Neither did I," he replied. "I'm married." "I know." We said nothing more. There was nothing else that wouldn't feel like a lie. At dawn, I left without a word, returning to the house with my clothes damp and my heart burning. The guilt came swiftly, sharp and cold. But underneath it, a dangerous relief hummed. For once, I had felt wanted. Not tolerated, not managed, wanted. I spent the morning in silence, moving like a ghost. Caleb didn't come to the house, and I didn't go to the barn. We worked separately, the energy between us strained and unspoken, but it lingered, like smoke that clung even after the fire died. Rachel called again. "You sound different," she said immediately. "I'm fine." "You sure? You sound like someone who's about to do something stupid." I swallowed hard. Maybe I already did. She was quiet. Then, "Anna, don't confuse attention with affection. One can vanish, the other stays." That night, I sat at the kitchen table, Ethan's last text glowing on my phone screen. "Be home Friday. Sooner, if I finish early." The words made my blood run cold. I looked out toward the barn. The lantern was on, And just like that, the weight of what I'd done pressed in from every direction, because now I had a secret, and secrets on farms like ours never stayed buried long. Ethan came home on a Thursday. I expected Friday, hoped for Saturday, but Thursday shattered the fragile space I had tried to hold together. His truck pulled into the gravel drive just past sunset, the headlights catching the barn for a brief, accusatory moment. I stood frozen at the kitchen sink, watching his silhouette climb out, stretch, and pause, like he could sense something had shifted. He entered the house with his usual quiet presence, shaking off dust, placing his boots by the door. He smelled like cedar and diesel, familiar, steady, unforgiving. "Long trip?" I asked, voice a shade too high. "2 counties canceled, made it back early." He didn't smile, just dropped his duffel by the stairs and walked into the living room like nothing had changed. But everything had. Dinner was strained. I set a roast on the table, poured 2 glasses of wine, and avoided looking at the barn through the window. Ethan ate methodically, as if chewing through obligation. "Fence looks better," he said between bites. I nodded. "Caleb did most of it." "Yeah, meant to tell you I hired him. Figured you'd appreciate the help." I nearly laughed. The absurdity of it. Ethan handing me a match and walking away from a dry field. "He's a hard worker," I said simply. Ethan grunted. "Quiet too. Good kind of man." I couldn't meet his eyes. That night, we lay in bed like strangers separated by an ocean of cotton and regret. He fell asleep quickly, his back turned to me. I stared at the ceiling, trying not to drown in guilt. The next morning, I rose before dawn. The air was thick with the scent of rain and nerves. I stepped outside and walked toward the barn. Caleb was packing. His duffel bag was half-zipped. His boots were already laced. "You're leaving," I said. He didn't turn. I shouldn't have stayed this long. I stepped closer. "It wasn't just you." He looked at me then, eyes dark and sad. "Doesn't matter. He's back. You're married." Lines were crossed. I felt the words build in my throat, sharp and stupid. I can leave him, I can choose you, but I didn't say them, because I wasn't sure they were true. Instead, I asked, "Will you come back?" "To this barn?" "No. To me." He gave a faint smile. "If you ever become yours again, maybe." He hoisted his bag, walked to the door, and paused. "Take care, Anna." And just like that, he was gone. I stood in the doorway long after he disappeared down the road, the wind tugging at my sleeves like it wanted to carry me with him. Later that afternoon, Ethan walked into the kitchen holding the broken lantern Caleb had fixed. "He fixed this too," he said. I nodded. He stared at it for a long moment, then set it down. "I know," he said softly. My stomach flipped. "Know what?" Ethan leaned against the counter, his eyes unreadable. "You've been different. The way you talk, the way you avoid me. You think I didn't notice?" I swallowed. I didn't mean for it to happen. That doesn't change that it did. Silence fell between us, thick and bitter. "I gave you space," he said. "Maybe too much, but I thought that's what you needed." "I needed you," I whispered. "Not your silence, not your schedule. You left this house and I disappeared inside it." He looked down, then nodded once, slowly. "I won't ask you to explain it. I won't ask if you love him," he said. "But I will ask you one thing." "What? Do you still want this?" His voice didn't tremble. "Us. This marriage." I opened my mouth, closed it. The question landed harder than the confession. "I don't know," I admitted. He let out a slow breath, stepped back, and picked up his keys. "Then figure it out. I'll be at my brother's place for a week." And then he left. For the second time in 2 weeks, I watched a man walk away from me. But this time, I was alone. Truly alone. As the sun dipped behind the hills, the farm turned silent again. But it wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the kind that made you hear every creak in the floorboards, every shift in your chest. I walked back into the barn one last time, sat where Caleb had slept, and stared at the empty space where his bag had been. Choices, I realized, don't scream. They whisper, and their echoes last longer than thunder.